In his garden, in his house in Cairo, here is President Gamal Abdel Nasser of Egypt, who 5 years ago, as a young army officer, was prominent among those who led the revolution to remove King Farouk, and who later became president himself, and just under 1 year ago, who nationalized the Suez Canal for Egypt. And events subsequent to that will be within your recollection. Now, President Nasser, the first thing I want to ask is this. Britain now, President Nasser.
Well, I'm sorry about the period of the bad relations between Britain and Egypt, and we hope that both countries work for good relations in order to be friendly again.
Do you want to resume normal diplomatic relations?
I think that is the duty of each country. We have to return to the normal relations.
I ask you about American policy now. What is your attitude to that, especially the Eisenhower doctrine for preventing the spread of communism in the Middle East?
Well, we look to the American policy in connection with nationalism in the Middle East, because we feel that what is dominating in the Middle East now is nationalism, not communism. There is no spread of communism in the Middle East after the revolution. The Americans insist that nationalism is communism and try to stand against nationalism, thinking that they are standing against communism. They will turn the nationalism to be communism. Because nationalism is an open movement. Communism is underground movement. If they attack nationalism and try to stand against nationalism, the result will be turning nationalism to underground communist movement.
You don't allow communism to subside Egypt, do you?
Well, according to my information, my experience during the last 5 years, I think that communism was neutralized in Egypt because of adopting nationalist policy. Because the people are aiming of their national aspirations. If they feel that they are not able to adopt and fulfill their national aspirations, they come underground and form communist elements. Now, because of the national policy of Egypt, I think that the communist movement was neutralized.
Well, can you explain to people who watch this interview why it is that you fight communism at home and yet appear to work very closely with it in your foreign policy?
Well, communism at home, local communism, is illegal.
In Egypt?
In Egypt, yes. But dealing with Russia is another thing. Our policy is the policy of non-alignment.
Non-alignment?
Non-alignment.
Similar to that of India, do you mean?
Similar, yes, to that of India. We want to have trade relations and commercial relations with all the world. We want to be friendly to all the world. We want to participate in the case of peace. We want to participate in the decrease of the Cold War. We want to cooperate with the world to avoid war.
Do you feel you are running any risks if Russia strengthens its foothold in the Middle East?
Well, of course, we are against any domination in the Middle East.
Now, you've often been criticized in the West for spending money on armaments, which might have been devoted to improving the Egyptian standard of living. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, building an army which would be able to defend Egypt is not at all spending money on heavy armaments. We have to defend our country against aggression. We were saying that always. We declare that we are not aiming aggression, but we have to defend our territory against aggression. And you know that aggression was against us. We were attacked by Israel, by Britain and France, of course, in the same time.
Isn't it arguable, though, that if there was a state of war with Israel, that her attack was merely a continuation of the state of war, not a separate act of aggression?
But there was an armistice in the same time. An armistice is transition period between state of war and the end of war.
You say that needing arms to combat aggression, but why is it that Egypt should need 3 large Russian submarines?
Well, you know, when we made our arms deal, we asked for submarines. We want to build up our navy as we build our army and air force. We asked for the submarines. And why not we have submarines?
Well, Israel has interpreted this as a further threat to Israeli shipping. Is that a fair interpretation?
Israel is always interpreting everything to make noise and propaganda in order to deceive the Western world. They want to isolate the Arabs from the Western countries. So they have to raise their voice and make this noise. If you follow the Israeli propaganda, they take each incident to make from it a big cause.
Have they to refuse Israeli shipping the right to go through the Suez Canal?
Well, really, we cannot isolate the passing of the Israeli shipping in the Suez Canal from the whole Palestine problem. We realize now in the Western countries that they are concentrating on the passing of the Israeli ships through the Suez Canal, neglecting the other problems. I mean the rights of the Arabs of Palestine who were expelled from their territory. The Arabs have the rights to return to their homes, to return to their territory as it was decided by the United Nations. Israel is asking to use the Suez Canal. According to the Constantinople Convention of 1888, Article 10, Egypt had the right to defend herself and defend her territory. According to this article, we stopped the Israeli ships from using the Suez Canal from 1948 until now.
Are you going to go on doing that?
Well, we feel that this is a part from the Palestine.
Well, now, you say that you cannot isolate this question, but
yes.
As you remember, the Council, you'll remember, did in 1951 when it ruled that the interference with Egyptian shipping, and I quote, cannot be justified on the grounds that it is necessary for self-defense.
Well, on 1951, in the Security Council, they said that stopping the Israeli shipping from using the Suez Canal is not in the spirit of the arms agreement. We take it as a legal question. We say that we have the right.
Well, then, if you take it as a legal question, are you prepared to accept a ruling on the matter by the International Court of Justice?
We said that in our declaration about the Suez Canal.
Now, it's frequently been said of you, President Nasser, that you want to see the destruction of Israel as a state. Is that true?
Well, you can read my speeches, you can read all my statements. We said that we have to defend our territory against aggression, and we insist about gaining the rights of the Arabs of Palestine, the 1 million refugees. That's what I said. There is a difference between the rights of the Arabs of Palestine and the destruction of Israel. I don't believe more, and I don't believe that any small country can raise war, because we cannot neglect the whole public opinion and the world morale, and we cannot gamble a big war.
Well, one quotation which is used against you, President Nasser, is this, that in a telegram, for instance, to President Kuwaitli of Syria in December 1955, you said this: Egypt will be glad when her army and that of Syria meet on the ruins of this treacherous people. Now, is that implying the destruction of Israel?
True? Are you sure of this telegram?
Those are the words
we can
I've
see
seen.
it after the...
All right. But you think that may be an unfair translation?
Of course.
Well, then, is it now, as a permanent fact, the existence of Israel as an independent sovereign state?
Well, we don't recognize Israel because there is a problem between us.
Well, that is a diplomatic matter, but do you accept the permanent fact of its existence as an independent sovereign state?
Well, it is you know, you are jumping to conclusions.
No, I'm asking a question. I'm asking a question. I appreciate, President Nasser, that you don't recognize Israel, but that surely is purely a diplomatic technicality. Are you prepared to accept the existence of Israel as an independent sovereign state, apart from the question of frontiers?
Well, you know, Israel to us is a problem because Israel to us now is a Palestine problem. We are aiming to solve the problem of the refugees. We are insisting and we are calling to give the Palestine refugees their rights, their territory and their land and their homes. We don't recognize Israel. We feel that the Israeli problem is problem of Israel and the problem of the Palestinians. We said before that we are ready to accept the United Nations resolutions of 1947. That's to give the Arabs their rights and to give the Jews their rights.
Do you ever see a time when you and Mr. Ben-Gurion might get down by a table and talk about this problem?
Well, you know, every time Mr. Ben-Gurion said that he's ready to talk with us, he was planning something. 7 days before the aggression, Mr. Ben-Gurion said, our policy is peace. We want to have negotiations with Egypt. But he was trying to mislead us in order to raise his attack. One time before, he said that he's ready to meet with Nasser to talk for a settlement. Next day, there was aggression against Egyptian troops. It is a matter of trust and confidence.
Kat, your dream that the Arab countries should become one great power from the Persian Gulf to the Atlantic Ocean?
Well, you know, this book was published 1953. After 1 year, countries, as a result of our study, strategical study. From the history, we can see that if the Arab countries are cooperating together, they can defend themselves against aggression. If they are divided, if there is a dispute between the Arab countries, they will be under foreign domination. That's why I said in this book that the Arab countries must cooperate and must unite their policy.
Well, you say a little bit more than that, according to this translation, don't you, President Nasser? You say that the role of the...
Well,
that's a little more than cooperation.
Well, unite is a power. It may be weakness or power. It was weakness. If we look to the history, we can find that sometimes this power was used as weakness elements against the Arabs. I said that we have to change these factors of weakness to be factors of power. That is, factors of strength to defend ourselves against aggression and against domination.
One of our British papers, the Manchester Guardian, which was very critical of Sir Anthony Eden's policy, says last week that your foreign policy towards the Arab states is now in ruins. What do you say about that?
Well, it was said many times in your newspapers, many things which are not the truth. Once it was said that I'm making conspiracies all over the Arab world. I answered the question once that I don't think that I'm a genius to organize conspiracies and activities all over the Arab world. I will be the best organizer in the world.
Are your relations with Sweden and Saudi Arabia as satisfactory as you would like?
Well, there are some difficulties according to some suspicions in Jordan. It was said in Jordan that we were really participating in the plots. Of course, it is nonsense. Of course, your paper said that before, hundreds of times. The American paper said that before. It was said that we were supporting some elements against the government. Well, of course, it is not true. I think in Jordan they will realize that, the Jordanian people realize that we were not supporting a part of the Jordanian people against the other.
How about Saudi Arabia? Are you satisfied to have the support of the majority of the Egyptian people?
Well, I think so, because they stood beside us during the aggression. According to your information, British information, they were waiting for the Egyptian people to make a revolution against the Egyptian government. We distributed 400,000 pieces of small arms to the people to stand beside the army during the aggression. We were able to collect these pieces of arms after the end of the aggression. And the people were really ready to fight and to die for the liberty of their country. And this was a proof for me. I was satisfied that the people are supporting the policy of their government.
Well, can you answer the question which has been asked in the last few days in the West? as to why it is necessary for you to strike out about half the candidates in next month's election.
Well, you know, if you return to your history, or if you return to the American history, during the days of Washington or after Cromwell in Britain, you may feel that we are now facing this period of building up democracy. We have now a vacuum. We have no political parties because democracy was used for domination in this country. The minority was dominating the majority. The landlords, the feudalists. We liquidated feudalism. We put an end to the domination of the landlords. We liquidated the party. There was a vacuum. We want to build a new democracy for the people, for the interests of the people. We have to go on step by step.
What proportion, President Nasser, may I ask about your plan for running the Suez Canal, which you have deposited with the United Nations? Are you prepared to reconsider that plan, those proposals, to bring them more into line with the famous 6 principles which the Security Council said were essential for any settlement of the canal?
Well, we feel that our last declaration is fulfilling the 6 principles. The main point of conflict was the insulation of politics of any one country. We feel we want the insulation of the politics of the other countries. The other countries want the insulation of the politics of Egypt.
Well, could I put to you the point made by Mr. Macmillan in the House of Commons last month?
Yes.
He said your system, but something Egypt could go back on at any time. And therefore it was not right to say that the canal was insulated from Egyptian politics.
No, but we said in this declaration that we want to register this declaration in the United Nations as international obligation. And it was registered in the United Nations as international obligation. And we were informed by Mr. Hammarskjöld about that.
The position at the moment is that Egypt could go back on the declaration if it so chose.
No, it is impossible. It is impossible after the declaration and after what we said that it is an international obligation.
Well,
so why we go back? For what reason? To raise troubles?
Well, do you expect the great maritime countries of the world to be satisfied with that answer without some international guarantee?
Well, if they want to ease the tension, and they are great powers. We are a small country, so they have the initiative. I don't think that small country like Egypt will try to raise troubles with big powers.
But don't you think it is better and profitable for a small country like Egypt to have does not force great maritime countries to seek alternative routes of supply?
Well, we said that we are ready to have a system of cooperation, but not a system of foreign domination, because the Suez Canal is a part of the Egyptian territory. So we are ready about any sort of cooperation, but not domination, whatever it is, international domination or single domination of any one of the big powers.